In the spiritual galaxy of Greek mythology, the story of Sisyphus is never a simple fable of divine punishment, but a meditation on existence that has spanned thousands of years. This king of extraordinary wisdom defied the gods twice with mortal wit. He captured Thanatos, the god of death, to break free from the shackles of death, and then tricked Persephone, the goddess of the underworld, to return to the mortal world. Yet this arrogance toward divine authority ultimately earned him the cruelest punishment from the gods. He was forced to roll a magic boulder up a mountain, only for the boulder to come crashing down to the foot of the mountain every time it neared the summit, leaving him to repeat this futile labor endlessly for all eternity. From a classical perspective, this myth is a straightforward inquiry into humanity's ultimate fate. No matter how much wisdom or power a mortal possesses, any attempt to escape death is in vain, and the destiny of birth, old age, sickness, and death is inescapable for all. But as the world entered the modern age, Sisyphus's path of rolling the stone has become a precise metaphor for the daily predicament of every ordinary person, the perfect symbol of the monotony and absurdity of secular life. We repeat a similar trajectory day in and day out, yet seldom stop to ask ourselves, what is the meaning of all this hustle and bustle? Brew a cup of coffee in the morning, rush to work on the commute, sit at a desk for hours on end, get entangled in trivial work troubles and occasional reproaches, head home the same way at dusk, while away the evening scrolling through short videos with dinner, and then fall into a deep sleep. When we wake up the next day, everything starts all over again. Like Sisyphus, we forge ahead in an endless cycle of repetition. There is always a moment when this absurdity strikes us unexpectedly in the mortal world, making us suddenly feel that everything around us has lost its purpose. Life is a mess, and all the busyness seems utterly meaningless. Perhaps it is a morning waiting for the commute on a street corner, or a night walking alone after working overtime. We look at the hurrying crowd around us and can't help but ask in our hearts, why are they in such a rush? Why must I follow this set path? Where exactly lies the meaning of life? What am I living for? The absurdity of modern society, however, always revolves around one most realistic proposition: money, or rather, the lack of material security. Far too many people never get the chance to explore the ultimate meaning of life, simply because the pressure of survival has long filled every gap in life. It is hard to find the mental strength to probe the essence of life when you are still struggling to keep a roof over your head and put food on the table. Financial stability may be the first step for a person to dare to face and embrace absurdity. For this very reason, we have gradually come to understand this. Humanity's longing for meaning is engraved in the genes of our biological instinct. Evolution has endowed us with an innate ability to find order in chaos and seek reasons in the unknown. This is the underlying logic of human learning and growth. Yet, it also traps us in an eternal conflict with the essence of existence. Because the very nature of the universe is random and irrational, and there is no preset meaning to all things in the world, loved ones will eventually pass away. Bright stars will explode in the end. Sudden natural disasters can destroy everything, and millions of people while away their days in front of screens day after day. But what is the point of all this? Even so, humanity forge ahead persistently, trying to endow all things with meaning to construct our order, even if this order is always negated by the meaninglessness of the universe. This irreconcilable paradox is what the French Algerian philosopher Albert Camus called the absurd. In a universe that is inherently meaningless, humanity clings relentlessly to the longing for meaning. And the myth of Sisyphus is the perfect fable Camus used to interpret this absurdity. We strive with all our might to roll the boulder up the mountain, yet we can never stop it from rolling down in the end. This futility often gives rise to extreme anxiety, alienation, and despair. We shout into the empty universe, only to be met with a deafening silence, not even a single echo in return. For the long stretch of human history, religion was the only antidote to this confusion. People did not need to explore the meaning of life alone, because there was always a supreme power that gave a predetermined answer to all things in the world. But all this was completely shattered in 19th century Europe. The rise of new scientific and philosophical trends gradually shook Christianity's position as the core pillar of society, and also brought an unprecedented collapse to humanity's spiritual world. Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species subverted humanity's understanding of its own essence with the theory of evolution, becoming an important straw that broke the camel's back of traditional religious cognition, and also propelled society toward a fundamental transformation away from religion. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, keenly captured the core of this spiritual revolution and uttered his earth-shattering proclamation: God is dead. This does not mean that Nietzsche believed God had truly perished, nor was he celebrating the decline of religion. It was a cold observation. The decline of Christianity had left Western society without the foundation on which it had built its moral, metaphysical, and meaning systems for centuries. Nietzsche was filled with anxiety about this, fearing that without a suitable spiritual replacement, humanity would eventually sink into the mire of nihilism, a philosophy that denies all objective truth and believes in nothingness, which would rob humanity of its direction forward. In Nietzsche's view, nihilism is an inevitable path for humanity to break free from the shackles of religion, but it is by no means the end. For if people believe that life has no inherent meaning, they are easily trapped in utter despair. To this end, he sought to accelerate the arrival of nihilism and thus its demise, firmly believing that after nihilism, humanity would eventually find a true philosophical foundation to guide society back to prosperity. Regrettably, however, he only succeeded in the former. Nihilism swept the world under his impetus, yet it did not fade away as he had hoped. Even his philosophical ideas were co-opted by many violent ideologies in the early 20th century, leading to countless tragedies. More than a century later, nihilism still pervades global culture. People's trust in secular and religious institutions has plummeted to an all-time low. Government corruption, capital imbalance, and the incompetence and detachment of spiritual leaders have left the entire society's spiritual beliefs in tatters. Majority of people admit that faith has long lost its guiding power in life, so they turn to science and reason for answers. Yet science and reason ultimately cannot provide a satisfying solution to the ultimate puzzle of the meaning of life. So, in the face of such absurdity and nihilism, where exactly should humanity go? Must we passively accept the fate that life has no purpose and let this boulder crush us? Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre, two philosophers of the 20th century, gave a resounding no. Both argued that in a universe without objective meaning, as free and rational individuals, humanity must take the initiative to create our own purpose in life. Sartre is hailed as the father of modern existentialism, a philosophical school that has always focused on the existential predicament of human beings as individuals. Human beings are forced to take full responsibility for their own lives, yet they can never touch absolute truth. Although the ideological roots of existentialism can be traced back to thinkers such as Soren Kierkegaard and Fyodor Dostoevsky in the 19th century, Sartre's uniqueness lies in his complete rejection of humanity's dependence on external forces. Neither God nor any other supreme being can endow humanity with meaning. He left behind this classic assertion: man is nothing but what he makes of himself, and defined the act of shifting the responsibility of life to external forces as bad faith. And Sartre's core proposition, existence precedes essence, subverted thousands of years of human cognition. Human beings are not born with a preset purpose in life, but come into this world first and then gradually define their own essence and clarify their own life meaning through choices and actions in the later days. In today's era, this view may already be deeply rooted in people's hearts, but in the mid-20th century, it was undoubtedly an ideological revolution. Before that, in the long history of humanity, the idea of essence precedes existence was deeply ingrained. Starting from the age of Plato and Aristotle, people firmly believed that the life purpose of each individual was predestined before birth. In traditional cognition, the meaning and value of human beings have long been preset, and the life trajectory is planned by a supreme power. God planned the life trajectory for everyone, and meaning and value were all packaged and ready before birth. And Sartre's proposition directly overthrew this deeply rooted cognition and proclaimed humanity's absolute freedom. We do not need to obey the predetermined meaning endowed by God or royal power, but only need to be responsible for our own choices and lives. In Sartre's eyes, the greatest predicament of human existence is not the lack of meaning, but this terrifying absolute freedom. Without objective meaning as a guide, human beings must build their own moral code and design their own life purpose by virtue of their own hearts. Camus largely agreed with Sartre's judgment. We are born in an inherently meaningless universe, as if thrown into freedom with nothing to rely on. But he did not agree with the antidote Sartre proposed for the predicament of meaning. In Camus' view, solving the lack of meaning is by no means as simple as creating meaning for oneself, because the meaningless nature of the universe will constantly negate all human attempts. Just as Sisyphus rolls the boulder up the mountain, no matter how much effort he exerts, he can never stop the boulder from rolling down, and this futility will still give rise to a sense of absurdity, along with the ensuing anxiety, alienation, and despair. In Camus' eyes, in the face of the absurdity of life, humanity has only three possible responses. The first is suicide. Camus once said bluntly that this is the only really serious philosophical problem. Instead of facing the absurdity and futility of life, it is better to withdraw from this unwinnable game altogether. But the essence of this choice is compromise with absurdity. When a person is gone, there is no longer any chance to experience life, no matter how meaningless it is. And this is not a real solution to the problem, but letting absurdity dominate one's destiny, a complete surrender to life. The second is the faith-based solution, which Camus called philosophical suicide. This is similar to Sartre's bad faith, referring to people's refusal to take responsibility for creating their own meaning, and instead shifting this responsibility to external ideologies. This is essentially a self-deceptive denial. The individual thinks they have found the answer to meaning, but in reality, they are only escaping the essence of absurdity. Replacing the meaninglessness of the universe with a set of man-made beliefs ultimately results in the complete abandonment of the freedom of existence. Notably, the external ideologies in Camus' mouth do not refer only to religion, nationalism, capitalism, even secular family values. Any external system that can provide humanity with predetermined meaning can become a carrier of philosophical suicide. When we let our parents' expectations determine our major choices, let the mainstream social standards define our career directions, and let the secular yardstick of success measure our life value, we give up the right to independent thinking and choose to go with the flow. Yet such choices often trap us in endless unhappiness and discontent. This is why, on an ordinary afternoon, we will suddenly stop what we are doing and ask ourselves in our hearts, what am I doing all this for? The third, and the only real solution in Camus' eyes, is to acknowledge the meaninglessness of life, yet still choose to live it passionately. We can make choices for ourselves, define a unique meaning of our own, and follow the call of our hearts, rather than blindly obey the rules of others. Of course, this choice does not guarantee success. In Camus' view, humanity is destined to fail time and again on the road to creating meaning, just as Sisyphus is destined to watch the boulder roll down countless times. But this struggle itself is the most powerful resistance to absurdity. As Camus put it, the only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. The universe will always negate all human attempts to create meaning. Sisyphus is destined to roll the boulder up the mountain forever, knowing full well that the boulder will eventually roll down, yet still starting over time and again. But humanity must resist this absurdity, because it is this endless struggle that endows us with the power to live according to our own will. What matters is never the end of rolling the boulder to the summit, but the process of pushing it forward. This philosophical thought actually regards nihilism as a stepping stone to absurdism. Admittedly, life has no preset meaning. There is no absolute objective truth in the universe. All occurrences are merely accidental, and yielding to nihilism seems to be the most rational choice. But this does not mean that humanity must sink into the mire of nihilism and be unable to extricate itself. If we choose to embrace absurdity, we can transform this seemingly desperate situation into an opportunity to change our own perspective. Camus has long pointed out, what truly harms us is not the meaninglessness of life itself, but the loss and pain we feel when our longing for meaning is negated by the universe time and again. If we can let go of our obsession with a predetermined meaning and calmly accept life as it is, we can truly experience the essence of life, to live in the moment to the fullest, passionately, in this meaningless universe. We can constantly create and reshape our own life purpose without being bound by a single answer. Today, you may be trapped in a tedious job with no way out, but tomorrow, you can choose to resign and redefine your life entirely. Life has infinite possibilities. You can follow your heart, become anyone you want to be, and create your own value. You can become a chef, creating delicious food in the mortal world. You can also become a classical composer, building a world with musical notes. You can spend a year hiking through the wilderness, conversing with nature. Or you can devote yourself to aid organizations, finding value in kindness. All you need to do is summon up the courage to acknowledge your freedom, and then bravely become the person you want to be. When we understand this, we can let go of excessive expectations for the future, abandon the obsession with grand goals, and truly live in the moment. Every action we take does not have to point to an unattainable achievement, nor must it be for a preset result, let alone deliberately prepare for an empty afterlife. In this way, we can find our own happiness in any situation, even in the face of absurdity and predicament, and feel the beauty of life, because ultimately, the meaninglessness of the universe.